let's say you're hiring a salesperson, right? Someone who is average, let's say they're worth $100,000 a year, right? An average person. But someone who's statistically above average, that person is worth twice as much.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset, everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer. Be sure to head over to clicksandbricksacademy.com so you can access all the resources to start improving your sales today.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we have Chris Kunze with Kunze Analytics. He helps enterprises get the most out of their employees through analytics. If you got a small business or you have direct reports reporting to you, this is a great episode to watch. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you for joining our show. Very much appreciate having you on. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what exactly you guys do? Because I'm sure that I didn't do it justice.
Sure, absolutely. Years ago, I was in Europe as a recruiter, and I fell in love with a certain type of information about the candidates that I was trying to recruit. And if I modified my behavior and my communication style, it went a lot better. And then I came back to the States and I worked 15 years for a major talent assessment company in their service department and then also in research and development. I started coding and about 5 years ago started my own business.
Fantastic. So you're in corporate America doing analytics and hiring employees, doing all this different kinds of jobs. And you saw a hole in the marketplace. You're like, hey, I'm going to go tackle that. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about your mindset when you're leaving corporate America? Like, what specific skills did you need to have? Or maybe, what made you comfortable doing it? Was having enough money in the bank? Was it support from your family? What were some of the key factors in giving you the confidence to leave corporate America and start a brand new company with zero revenue on day one?
Sure. Well, when I was working in research and development, I was supposed to be excluded from talking with customers and with other employees because I was doing research.
Right.
But there were certain clients and partners in the field that knocked on the door so hard. They said, we need Chris to help us because if we don't have his expertise, we're going to lose our largest client. We're not going to make this sale. We're not going to renew our contract. So the leadership team reluctantly said, okay, we can have Chris kind of with both feet. And those projects were so complex and custom that I realized if I want to continue doing this, which I absolutely love, I have to go back and become a consultant and start my own company.
Okay, so you found something you really love to do in your corporate America job that wasn't really in your job description, right? So Instead of trying to talk the boss into letting you do that job, just go start your own firm.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So, and then Kunze Analytics, what do you guys do? What is the main, your elevator pitch?
Sure. So we are experts in the workforce, leveraging data from the U.S. Department of Labor. When people hire their first employee, if they're a small company just starting, we have nearly 1,000 models that they can use in a library to understand the characteristics of a barista or a biophysicist. And then for larger companies, mid-size and enterprise, we actually do very sophisticated data mining modeling so we can predict performance of employees and their retention, workplace safety and engagement, everything that the managers want to know. And we leverage data that's been in a box with dust that nobody's using. It's in these systems, these human resource information systems. Nobody in HR knows what to do with them because they're not analysts. So what we do is we help them out. We say, hey, you've got this very important predictive information. Let's marry the data, do some modeling, and now you can help. The HR department can help the end line managers, the frontline managers to coach more accurately, more meaningfully, and then retain employees and hire more accurately to have the data before you make that hiring decision.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. And then before in our little bit of pre-interview, you said you make these really nice dashboards for your users, right? So they can really, is that dashboard granular down to each individual employee, or is that kind of like high level department stuff?
No, it goes down to each individual employee. So when we build, let's say I have a client in Canada, and they are hiring people at emergency call centers, 911 call centers. It takes a very specific type of person, right? You have to be calm, you have to not freak out, you have to be knowledgeable and follow logic and reason and everything. They have a long training and a ton of turnover. So we started out with our first scorecard. They had 4 different tests that they were taking, and we found the elements that were predictive for 17 different key performance indicators. So we predicted all 17 in a single scorecard. So you could copy and paste someone's assessment results into a row, and it would automatically score and predict how they would do. Would they pass the exam? Would they have a lot of absenteeism? Well, what would their quality be of their work? And so now we've done 3 different iterations of that, and they always get to they're honing in on those key performance indicators that are most meaningful for them for this quarter.
Right. So I'm gonna throw a big whammy out there for you. Gary Vee says that hiring is a guess and firing is a decision. Is that good advice or bad advice?
Oh, I think that's very inadequate, because once you made the decision to hire someone, you're invested in that person. You're spending all type of money, and then you're getting a manager's time involved too. They're now in a team, so you have the morale question. And if you hire inaccurately, so let's talk about this. Let's say you're hiring a salesperson, right? Someone who is average. Let's say they're worth $100,000 a year, right? An average person. But someone who's statistically above average, that person is worth twice as much. And the person that is below average is worth 0. They're actually costing the company money. Now, if it's not a sales position,
but it's below average in that task or that job function, right? Doesn't mean they're a below average person, right?
No. Just they're not a good salesperson.
That specific line of work.
Yeah, they could be an engineer, they could be in accounting, they could be in operations, they could be in a lot of other places in the company, but they wound up in a sales role and they really suck. Right? And the hiring manager or manager should have known that, because they had the data to predict that this person had almost 0 chance or likelihood of succeeding. So why do you tell me? Because you can only coach people so far. If their personality is such that they're going to struggle every day in doing certain tasks. Imagine being a telemarketer when you get 99 no's and 1 yes. There are very few people that have thick skin like that, or the type of person that has to be patient in a very, very long sales cycle in complex technical stuff. They're not going to make a sale on the first call or even the second call.
Right. Absolutely.
It takes a very, very certain type, very special type of person.
Yeah. Long sales cycles for like corporate America, big B2B deals, we're talking the $120,000, $500,000 deals. I closed a deal this weekend that I've been working on since 2011, right? So, And it takes literally a very, very long time. We got a deal, we did the deal, and it's been working, and we finally closed it this Sunday. And that takes an obscene amount of, I don't know, delusion or patience. It's one of the two.
Patience, yeah.
Right? So fantastic. I love that, so really, if you put the wrong person in a role, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to train somebody, to get them on. Even my lowest end staff member, well, not my lowest end staff member doesn't cost that much to train. But like my entry level full-time positions, it's $10,000 to get them trained, right? That's my very first, very entry level position. I have some part-time positions don't cost very much because it's very objective work. There's no subjectivity to it at all. It's like cleaning people don't cost that much to train, but anything on the technical side, or they have some kind of specific ability, it's $10,000 just to say go, to train somebody to bring them into your business. So just making the guess on hiring people, I think you need a little bit more than that. I think that's not the greatest advice in the world, right? So,
yeah, and sure.
Moving forward, on this topic, where your product really comes and shines is that middle manager, the person that has direct reports. And our show is catered more towards, people that want to be entrepreneurs or small business owners that are in there. That's the majority of our audience. But I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can learn as a small business owner. If you adopt enterprise kind of mindsets too, that you can really make your small business kind of a beautiful thing, right? So can you tell us what the 3 key traits of a manager that has direct reports, say more than 3 direct reports, right? Because one is different than 2 is different. I think probably at 5 is where it starts getting complicated, right? And so if you have more than 5 direct reports, what are the 3 key traits that manager should have?
Sure. So the first trait has to do with the reasoning ability of the leader, of the manager, of the employer. And that is he or she needs to be quick on the uptake of new information, right? So they have to be able to gather information from what's written, what they hear, what they see, what they can, what their intuition tells them. They have to get information from a lot of different sources, and then they have to put it together. So they typically have to be gifted cognitively to be successful. Now that's the first thing, that's reasoning ability.
Right.
After that, they need to have what we call take charge. And this is a behavioral trait. It's latent, it's hidden. So you can't, just by looking at someone or even spending time with them, you really can't tell if they have this trait or not. It could come out in different situations, but it's the desire that the person has to lead. Some people are really happy and content just to follow. And you don't know that until you're in situations where there's chaos and someone needs to step forward. So This take charge on a continuum, there's going to be a certain percentage of people that have that trait, and in a sufficient amount to be able to have that ascendancy and that charisma to lead people to a future state. And it might be difficult getting there, so someone has to have that take charge. You don't want someone that's just hired as an employee to come on and have more take charge than their boss.
Well, I think the shareholders want that, but the boss doesn't.
Right? Well, it typically doesn't work out unless that new employee gets dedicated to a certain market or product,
right,
or a team of people that he or she's going to lead. So if you know someone is high and take charge, you better take advantage of it right away or they're gone.
Right. And if you're a business owner and you can find that employee, hire them, because you need more people like that on your team, right?
Absolutely.
If you're a business owner with a couple employees and you can find that person, you can afford them, bring them in, right?
I was doing a study with students at the University of Houston in the Bauer School of Business in 2020, October. We had 35 students. So I had them take a 45-minute test online, and then the professor gave me access to their academic performance.
Okay.
They were studying to be managers, and the semester was almost done. So we had really good numbers on their academic performance. Well, right. I built a model that was able to predict their performance with extreme accuracy. And we found for one of the students, he was getting an F, right? And this take charge behavioral trait, if he slightly modified it, which was in his capability, he'd become an A student. So I told that to the professor, whom I've known for 20 years. He was able to work with that student and get the grades up. And he didn't get an A because there wasn't enough time, but he was able to make the grade and at least pass the course.
Right. Fantastic. All right. So that we have cognitive ability and leadership, just the natural ability of leadership.
Yes.
Okay.
And the third behavioral trait is called sense of urgency. So there are people that, let's say you're working in a manufacturing environment and you're manipulating a little gadget, all day for 8 hours.
Right.
You have to be really low in sense of urgency. You have to be
Right.
focused on one task at a time. And if you move too much, you might lose a finger or a hand or something, right? You got to be very precise. You
Right.
can't have too much energy. But entrepreneurs and managers typically are higher on that scale. They multitask and they're doing a lot of different things.
Yes. And
They
I would say
need
my
to have
staff
that
says I'm
energy.
ridiculous with my sense of urgency. Like
Yes.
I want everything yesterday. Like nothing is good enough today. It had to have been done yesterday. I'm working on that though. Because too much sense of urgency, I think, can also destroy a team. Right?
Yeah, you have to modify. You
Yeah.
have to modify your behavior, your tendencies, using other behavioral traits to be able to soften your delivery, your message, and to also put checks in. So before I give this mandate, right, this needs to be done by this time,
Right.
I'm going to actually ask about this and check and put a little pause in there and some way to ameliorate the very strong traits that we have as leaders.
Right. All right. So I want to stir the pot just a little bit, right? What's
Yep.
more important in a manager, cognitive ability or emotional intelligence?
I'm going to say it depends upon the job. So for
Okay.
certain jobs, you need a high level of emotional intelligence, and for others, not so much. Now, I did do some research years ago with an emotional intelligence company in Australia, and we looked at, it was well over 1,000 data points with over 70 occupations. And we noted that as the occupations became more complex with higher salaries, there was required more emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So in general, we could say that the more emotional intelligence you have or develop, because you can develop emotional intelligence. It's not just an ability that is one way.
It's hard, but you can.
You can, right, with effort. That the greater potential you have to rise up along the career ladder.
Okay, so if you really focus on your emotional intelligence, you have a much higher glass ceiling, or maybe no glass ceiling.
That's right. That's right. You have.
I think that's
potential.
important. Would you think that's true as an entrepreneur or somebody just rising through the ranks in corporate America?
I'd say both, because if you're rising through corporate America, you're thinking like an entrepreneur. You're a 360 degree leader where you are. You feel that you have the responsibility to get the job done for your customers, for your teammates, and you're thinking like an entrepreneur already. You just don't have that role, right? You're in a situation, but actually the mentality and the behaviors are quite similar.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, I'm 100% on board. I think both of them are wildly important. I think every company needs both of those things, right? We need a person with high cognitive ability and a person with high emotional intelligence, or cognitive IQ, whatever you want to call it. If you can, right? If you find a leader with both that's all encompassing, you've got the holy grail of a person, I think. But or a slightly crazy person, depending on their outcome. So yeah, that's fantastic. Now, this is Clicks and Bricks. We like talking about business and technology. And I know I didn't set this question up, but I think our producer, Debbie, probably set this up for you. If you could rub your crystal ball and look into the future with technology, and since you're an analytics guy, can you think about what should people be thinking about when they're hiring managers or something like that in the future? And specifically on technology, right? Because you're using technology to kind of set, performance indicators, you are setting performance indicators on who the proper person is to hire, one, but then step back. And once you have a staff, one of my mentors once told me, he says, Ken, even the Yankees have bad players. It's the coach's job to put them in the right position, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
What is the future of that, of hiring the hiring managers look like?
So the future will be using machine learning and artificial intelligence to sift through the data that, copious data that companies are already collecting, especially during the screening process. There's a lot of information there, and it will be delivered to them on their their telephones or their wristwatches, or when they log into an account, they'll be able to predict things before they happen. And they'll be able to look at team members. Let's say we have 100 people applying for this job. Here are the top 15 people because of the key performance indicators and the retention that we've predicted. These are the ones we're going to interview first. Before, or even today, a lot of companies, they'll get a report from an assessment company, and it'll have a percentage on it, an overall job match score. Well, that's great. That's helpful, and that might correlate. But the translation hasn't been done all the way into the data that they look at every day and find meaningful. So that extra translation is done through advanced analytics, which people are starting to grapple with and understand how powerful it is and how useful to help coaching at an individual level.
Right. So I've got an idea in this particular world, and I think, and if anybody wants to take this idea and run with it, you're more than welcome to. And it's already starting to happen today, and it's been happening for 5 or 10 years, I think, that the incidence of people looking at your LinkedIn profile and saying, I think they would be a good candidate for this position, and reaching out specifically for that. I think that hires, employment companies or headhunters, whatever you want to call them, will start taking a full encompassing look of a person, of their online profile. And I think that the going out and looking for specific employees to fill those roles is going to be way more common in the next 5 and 10 years. And employers are going to be looking for, I need this person. And they're going to look at their social media profile of all the world and say, hey, who would be the top 100 candidates in the world, right? Because we don't have to hire anymore the person that lives within a 20-mile radius of the building, right? We can hire somebody all over the globe. So we can really get the best talent for our specific needs in the future. So with that said, for the viewers that are watching that aren't in business today, they don't have corporate American jobs, and they haven't started their business yet, tend to your social media profiles. They're important. And your hiring managers are looking at that stuff. And on the backside of that, you got analytic companies that are going to, I don't know if they're using it today for a hiring process, but they're going to be looking at that information before long if they're not already. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yes, I'm an advisor with a company called FutureSolve, and they have over 50 human resource technologies. Some of those platforms now scrape the web at least daily, and they look for all the information about people, not just their LinkedIn profile, but everything that's posted. And so a user, someone that's searching for talent, a talent acquisition manager can go and say, I need these skills, these specific skills for this job. I need this technical ability, these programming languages. I need to have experience with commerce or retail, and I need someone to speak these languages and with at least 3 years of programming. And the software goes out and finds those people. Now they might not be looking for a job yet. They're happily employed with a competitor. But now the talent acquisition executive can reach out and say, hey, we've got an offer. We think you're a really good match for this role. We have an opening. Are you interested? So now it's not just the active candidates, but a huge portion of what's going to go on are the passive candidates that you can reach out to through these new AI technologies.
Right. For the past 100 years, it's been an employer's market, right? But today, it's an employee's market. So I think that the acquisition guys are really going to step up their game over the next 5 years, because it has to, right? Where we used to put an ad on, Indeed, we would get one ad for like an entry level technician job. We get a couple hundred resumes the first day or two, and today we're getting like 10 or 15. So it's a really, it's a different world today than it was just 18 months ago. So the hiring process is going to change dramatically. And if you're looking to get hired, I think you should look at your entire online profile as a job interview, almost. If you're really serious about your future and how you're going to grow and how you're going to succeed in this world, if it's a public profile, you should treat it absolutely like it's a job interview. And there's some jobs out there now, I think, that are requiring, I know if you work in a financial institute, you have to turn over your social media profiles, right? You have to let them have some amount of access to them. So it's really, to me, crazy. I would personally never take a job that they required access to my personal data. But I don't think we're going to have that option forever. I think we're going to have to give up those rights in the future to keep technology in the future growing, because that's what the masses seem to want. Right.
Well, I'd like to also say that these new platforms are not just going to see what people have written about themselves, but they're also enabling job seekers to validate their skills.
Right.
So it's about the quality of the data, not just the quantity. And these new platforms are doing that. So when the employer says, I need someone that can do X, Y, and Z, the platform has already validated that they are proficient in those skills. And that's the added value that we haven't had to yet been able to enjoy, but it's now starting to come. I choose to work with what's called psychometric assessments. These are normed instruments, and the data is highly reliable. And I can compare Sally and Joe on a single norm scale. And that's very important, because when I do statistical modeling with those results, it's much more valuable than the data that people put in their resumes. A lot of it's exaggeration or even some lies, right? A lot of it is hyperbole, exaggeration. And so to get by that, we need to verify people's proficiency in different hard and soft skills. We need to validate that their personality, their cognitive ability, their occupational interests, their values are really for that person, that it's hard to lie and trick the system. There's specific tests to be able to do that. And employers, it's a 100-year-old industry, but now we're realizing how important those data are.
Right. So you went from corporate America and started your own company. If you were to give one piece of advice to somebody that's currently working in corporate America that has an idea and wants to make that leap, what would that one piece of advice be?
I'd say start moonlighting. Start doing what you love to do on the weekend at nights. Get a client or two and build that relationship, get some invoicing going. Yes. And then when you're ready, negotiate your severance package and then dedicate yourself 100%. So it's basically start moonlighting, get the feel for it, get your systems, get your computer, get your office, get everything that you need to start, do it part-time, and then make the jump when your interior says, okay, I'm ready.
Fantastic. So start now. Don't wait to start. Get started. And my backing that up a little more, if you need cash to get started, in today's world, you can moonlight really easily with Uber, Lyft, Instacart, all those things to start raising the capital that you need to buy that first piece of equipment or whatever it is to start your company, right? So start the moonlighting right away, even if it's a temporary moonlight, to get the capital to buy the 3D printer or buy the bigger computer or whatever it is that you want to do. Just get started. Put your plan together.
And it's bootstrap it. You don't need the best, you don't need a huge copying machine with scanner and all kinds of stuff that's 5 feet tall and it's going to occupy half of your office. You don't need that right away. That's well overkill. Right. After you make a couple of really good sales and have your customers, you might need that, right? But in the beginning, it's very basic. You just a small little laptop computer and go for it.
Yeah, I know when back in it's not so much anymore, but I built thousands of websites for lots of companies. And I know that back in the day, there was this effect. I think it was basically like a Reddit effect today, right? Where somebody put something on and get a whole bunch of traffic to your website really quick. I think it was a dig effect back then is what they called it. And, all these in the 2000s, early 2000s, when the .com bust was in the middle, people would way overbuild. Well, they were building with other people's money at the time anyway, but they would build these extravagant environments in case it came, right? So now with lean method and all that other stuff, you want to get started, and those growing pains are good growing pains. You'll figure them out. You'll run through them. Be honest about them with your clients, right? Hey, we're growing. I'm looking for this other staff member to come and start backfilling for me. Can I have an extra week on this deadline, right? Just be open and honest about where you're at in this process with your clients. And I think you'll find most of the time they're wildly acceptable of that, of what challenges you're going through. They understand as long as you're honest. If you try to hide stuff from them, the relationship's going to go sideways really quickly. Try to acting bigger than you are or smaller than you are never really works, right?
That's right.
So.
I I also recommend that you find some other people that are in a similar situation and you meet regularly, maybe once a week. There's a group that's been going on for 20 years. I was invited several years ago, and every Monday morning, we're all talking. We're in different parts of the country. We're
Right.
doing pretty much the same thing.
Right.
So you could say we're all competitors, but our spirit is to actually help one another. And and when we can collaborate, we do so. But that is just really psychologically wonderful for me because I don't have all the answers. And there are other people there that have gone through the heartache and the pain that I haven't gone through yet. Right?
Absolutely.
So,
And I use this show because I get to talk to entrepreneurs like you every single day. And I learn so much so fast. I think it's fantastic. And I love the fact that I get to learn every single day. It's been a joy. And thank you so much for your input. I think it's been a great show. Before we go, is there anything you would like to leave with the clients or with the audience?
Yeah, I'd like people to attend a webinar.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, and it's if they go to kunzeanalytics.com, they scroll down, they'll see our webinars.
Okay.
And if they're interested in, if they have, let's say, a young person, a son or a daughter, or a niece or a nephew, they don't know what to do, they could go and see me on Fiverr, and I can help them basically figure out what would be a good occupation for this young person in your life. And so it's not a part of where I work B2B, but this is a service, and it's got some very nominal fees. But we have powerful library and a great instrument. And if they could look up Chris Kunze 364 at Fiverr.com, and we could work that way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. I very much appreciate it. That's it for today's show, folks. Get to work.